I could just put a bit of paper over my face. Like that?
I quite like that.
Yes. I think plumbago was the best sort of summer bedding plant, if you like.
Yeah, but you put an umbrella over yours.
No. Can I hear Alan? Because he's being a bit mute. And he's never normally
I'm
mute.
fine.
Oh, you're
Can you hear me?
sorry. I never thought you were ever mute, and I just thought maybe you couldn't hear us.
No, I can hear every word.
He's more mute when I'm around because I talk so much, so.
Oh, right. Gosh.
Hello, welcome to episode 8 of Talking Dirty. Over at East Ruston Old Vicarage, we have Alan, Edward, Herbert Gray. Herbert, the happy, handsome horticulturalist in a dashing shade of blue today.
Well, everybody says that, why have I got so many names? But over in Cambridgeshire, we have Thordis, Maria, Sophia, Friedrichsen. So you have just as many names as I do.
Yeah, both quite a mouthful. Let's find out if today's mystery guest has quite such a fulsome name. Who is behind the mystery window? Drum roll.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very well. So, what are your names?
So I'm Nicholas, Andrew in the middle, and then Bailey, of course.
Nick Bailey.
Now, I was actually Andrew for the first week of my life, and then my father met some guy at work who was a total tosser called Andrew, and decided that I could no longer be Andrew, ironically. So that became my middle name.
So you would have been Andy Bailey.
Andy Bailey, yeah. Not sure about that.
Nick,
How are you guys?
Are you only Nicholas when you're naughty?
Exactly, yeah, in front of my mother or teachers, yeah.
Well, we're very well. It's a long time since we caught up with you. Of course, you used to be on our radio show years ago, and then
Yes,
you
indeed.
just went and hit the big time and became famous and very illustrious and acclaimed.
Not sure about that, but yeah.
So tell us, Nick or Nicholas Andrew Bailey, a little bit about yourself.
Oh gosh, where to begin? So actually, I'm working on relaunching my website at the moment, and one of the things I'm doing for that is a celebration of what I realise terrifyingly is my 30th year in horticulture. So I started at 15. I am now 15 plus 30, can't quite say it out loud. And so I've been sort of going through and putting this document together, looking at, what I've done horticulturally over the years, but then all the other things that have happened in industry. And actually, it's kind of fascinating to look back over that era. And I guess for you, Alan, is it about 30 years as well that you've been sort of full-on, hands-on gardening at East Ruston?
I think you can actually safely say it's about 45 years for me as well. Because it's not just here at the Old Vicarage, but I mean, the greater part of that 40-odd years has been here. But even when Graham and I lived in London, we've had every kind of garden, from a garden in a pit at the back of a block of flats to a roof garden, which dried out phenomenally. So I've always had that kind of gardening bug and learned a great deal of lessons, as have you, along the way.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, what I found fascinating actually pulling this document together, it's wound up being about 5,000 words, and it's a series of anecdotes of some of the naughtier things I've done over the years, but it's also underpinned with all the sort of key things that have happened in horticulture, and it's sort of been fascinating going through. And when certain key plants first arrived on the scene, something like Salvia amistad, which we sort of take for granted now and everybody loves, to realise that has been around since, I think, is it 1992? There's just been so many different kind of fascinating revelations, and just looking at how horticulture's shifted. When I started, I was working in a nursery and garden centre, and the thing that everybody wanted was the absolutely gorgeous conifer and heather garden, which in retrospect was quite hideous, but that was what was happening back then. So that was even in the mid 80s. And I think it's incredible that we've kind of gone from that, which was the sort of antithesis of being wildlife friendly and in touch with the environment, to now being so much more focused on wildlife and meadows and sort of gardening in tune with nature rather than fighting it. And I don't know if you remember this, Alan, but those miniature conifers that were sold to go with the heathers, turned out that none of them were actually miniature. So if anybody planted them, they were good for about 5 years. The nursery disappeared, and then the thing got up to 5 meters tall.
Yeah,
so,
for a very short time. I know several people that have actually had to go to the great expense of getting rid of them because they didn't do it early enough. And then, the time comes when you need a tree surgeon and a digger and goodness knows what. And it's a very costly exercise.
Indeed. And I don't know, just so many amazing things to see that, there's institutions we think have been there for forever. Looking at Hampton Court, I hadn't realised until we put the research together that it was actually Network Rail South East that introduced the Hampton Court Flower Show, and then of course the RHS took it over. But that was only in the 90s, so it is amazing how many things have shifted.
I went to that first Hampton Court thing. And I went to, they had a gala evening. I mean, this is probably just the first year that it was taken over by the RHS. And they had a gala evening, which you paid a horrendous amount of money to attend, but you did get a glass or two of champagne and some nice things to eat. But the most wonderful thing about that gala evening was I don't know whether they were the Blues and Royals or whoever they were, there was a marching band, which added greatly to the feeling of the evening. But the fireworks at the end were absolutely fantastic.
Oh, wow.
Court Palace, of course.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I remember one of the things I've put into my sort of great list of horticulture of 30 years was when I put a show garden together for Hampton Court the first time, and actually met Carol Klein that year for the first time as well. And that was just as she was starting to get known on TV. And it's amazing to think that was more than 25 years ago. Amazing to see that Dermot Gavin has been on TV for 24 years. It's just been amazing, and almost a sort of cathartic process going back through and thinking, okay, where was I when that happened? And then the major gardens that have opened and changed, around the world. Annick up in the north. I think that, and then probably the Newt, which is the new garden that's opened at Hadspen House. Probably the two most iconic. RHS Bridgewater as well, of course, new RHS garden. So it's been really interesting to reflect on that window of time.
And you mentioned Carol Klein and Dermot Gavin in there. It must have been really bizarre because over that time period, there have been huge changes in horticulture. There have been huge changes in plant introductions and in your life, because you moved from Norfolk to London. You were there at the Chelsea Physic Garden, I'm sure, encountering all kinds. You now, one of the Gardeners World team. You and Chelsea Flower Show, designing on Main Avenue. You must have crossed paths with so many people who you'd first encountered from afar, watching their work, and then there you are actually working alongside them.
It's been very, very strange. And one thing I was actually just writing yesterday was the fact that my sorry tale of Chelsea Flower Show, that I was all of 1 point off gold. Very upsetting, still deeply bitter and twisted about it, but I'll get over it in the end. But what I actually put on the notes on it was it was slightly lightened by the fact that I was comforted by my childhood crush in the name of Joe Wiley, who came onto my garden on press day. And so just so many odd things have happened like that. People that, I listened to her all the way through my teenage years, and she was this kind of fantastical, mythical character that appeared out of Radio 1 and, knew the coolest music and the best people. And then suddenly she's there chatting to me, telling me my garden's great. Skip forward 2 years and I'm presenting telly with her at Hampton Court, go into the green room, can't get the coffee machine to work. Suddenly Joe's in a great big flap and panicking, crawling under the table to unplug her hair straighteners, which have stopped the coffee machine from working. I was like, how has this happened in my life? How has this happened? But no, it's been a real joy, and
Nick,
I think you get sort of
your Chelsea. That was your first design for Chelsea, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. I mean, I've been involved with. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think you have to take great solace in the fact that I don't think anybody's ever won a gold medal at their first attempt, because you're a new boy and you've got to serve an apprenticeship.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. And a few people have said that to me. And actually, the real greats of Chelsea over the last sort of 15 years, Cleve West and Andy Sturgeon, both again didn't get gold their first time. So it does make me feel a bit better. Problem is, I'm not sure I could bring myself to ever do it again. I've still got PTSD, Alan.
Well, I think it's one of those things that until you try it, until you do it, you don't know just how much it takes out of you as a person. And I think, judging from what a lot of the exhibitors have told me over the years, it can be draining, very draining.
Oh God, yeah, extremely. I mean, it's such an undertaking, and I think people don't realise that you've got sort of 3-4 months of solid work before you even arrive on site, and then sort of a year before that in the planning. And we had plants growing in 6 different sites in the UK and in Europe that we're trying to oversee. I was flying to Germany and Italy. Sort of every other week, going on these dreadful Fokker planes out of City Airport. I mean, I remember getting into one of them, this tiny little plane at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Rattle traps as well.
Well, yeah, and the whole plane was just full of rubbish. There was Coke cans all over the floor. It smelt like a changing room. And I thought, they've put this much effort into cleaning the plane. How's the engine looking? But anyway, we survived, but it was very strange. And then literally over to Germany, run into the nursery, an hour to select the tree I want, into a taxi back to the airport and back home again. So it's absolute madness. And it's not just me. Everybody who does the Chelsea Garden goes through that same stuff. But it's also fascinating, some of the people you meet, and you have sort of perceptions of what people are going to be like. So, for example, Mary Berry, she comes across as really lovely on TV. And I kind of thought she's probably actually quite mean in reality, and this is all just a thin veil. Anyway, got to hang out with her at Chelsea. Turns out she's absolutely lovely. So that was really nice. I always imagined Dermot Gavin would be really aloof and this kind of wild child, and he's the most lovely, warm, accessible guy you could possibly want to meet. Joe Swift, watching him for years and years and years, and I thought he'd be kind of Ponzi Telly type, and he's just the most warm and engaging, lovely guy. So it's been really interesting. And then actually at Chelsea, had a few moments of different people coming over to my garden. Ainsley Harriott stuck his tongue in my ear for some reason, which was a little bit alarming and unrequested. Princess Anne came over to the garden and sort of beckoned me over to the edge of the garden and sort of leant in and whispered to me, "There's a whole load of tut here, but this is lovely." And I was completely astounded. And then Claire Balding showed up, and I went off on this crazy rant to her about all the amazing things she'd done for the LGBT community. And it was one of those moments where you're hearing yourself, just stop talking. No, stop now. I don't say any more things. And it was just spewing out of me. But yeah, it's been a massive shift. The boy from a backwater in Norfolk, and then. Well, last, I don't know if you were there actually, Alan, last autumn I ended up hosting the Garden Media Guild Awards at the Savoy Hotel. And I mean, it was completely terrifying. It has to be, I'm sure you experienced this, Alan, actually, like speaking to the public and other gardeners, absolutely fine. Speaking to 250 of your peers, your kind of future, present and past employers, completely terrifying. So, but anyway, I survived it, and people seemed to laugh in the right places, and I don't think it was pure sympathy, so maybe it was all right. But yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It's frankly astonishing that we've managed to find any time in your diary to steal half an hour for this podcast. You are probably one of the busiest people in horticulture. I mean, how do you find time to keep on top of, you mentioned new plant introductions and also, having to do some actual gardening as well. How do you find time for it all?
Well, I'm extremely lucky in as much as I have the world's most efficient assistant who runs my entire life, so I can focus on on horticulture, on design, on writing, and she's kind of got everything else under control. So all of those things that I find completely mind-blowing and head-wrecking, whether it's kind of running the business or the accounts or dealing with clients, all of those things she fabulously addresses. So. Yeah, it gives me time to be able to focus on the stuff I love. So I feel very, very blessed.
Talking of great plants, when we were preparing this podcast, I did see a couple of things flying past the camera, which I think are somewhere behind you. So what have you got for show and tell?
Yeah. Okay, so two different plants, but this is a real wow plant for me, and something I've used in lots of different gardens and lots of different forms of. So we'll see if I can show you well. So it's a form of lobelia, but of course it's not the standard lobelia that you have for bedding. That's Lobelia erinus, which is this tiny little annual plant which comes from South Africa. This is actually a form of Lobelia speciosa. So as you can see, it is a much, much, much larger plant. It's a lovely, lovely thing. It's about to go into my garden if I don't wreck it. And so it starts flowering around about now. And what's lovely is, you know, most gardens are sort of starting to look a bit tired or sad at the moment, but this is really coming into its own. And this will flower all the way through till October. It's the form is called Hadspen Purple. There's a couple of other forms of it. I think there's other lobelias as well, huge lobelias at this time of year that are worth thinking about. I know you grow Lobelia tupa, don't you, Alan? At East Ruston.
I do grow Lobelia tupa. I've got 3 forms of it: a dark red, a red, and a terracotta version. And the strange thing,
nice.
Some of them are set seed, and some of them don't. I can't remember which ones do and which ones don't at the moment. But Lobelia tupa is a great plant. But I was just going to tell you about something that I've grown from seed, which is, I hope I'm not going to regret, but it's a lobelia called Lobelia fistula, and one plant is growing in a 20-litre pot at the moment.
Wow,
it is ginormous, and it has purple flowers. It's like Lobelia tupa on steroids.
Oh wow!
So I'm hoping that I'm going to keep it through the winter under glass this year, because I'm not sure how hard it is, and as I've only got one, I don't want to risk it. So I'll keep it under glass, and the moment I see it starting to, produce a central bud that's going to flower, out it goes into the garden. It's a really exciting thing.
Ooh, nice. I mean, I have to say that there are a few dubiously named lobelias out there. Of course, there's Lobelia syphilitica as well, which flowers in spring in that pale blue tone. But they're a nice group of plants. There's also, of course, Lobelia cardinalis, which are those sort of dark-formed lobelias. I don't know if you've come across them, Thordis, with the really intense red flowers. And they're interesting because you can grow them in relatively boggy soil, ordinary soil, or you can grow them as a marginal plant, sort of directly in water.
What's fascinating about Lobelia cardinalis, and that is the fact that it grows in America, where it spends its winter covered with snow, and yet in England, where we have moister winters, it often snuffs it. It often
pegs
dies.
out. Yeah.
And the reason for that is because in America they have that. It's a bit like the prairie flower. What do I mean?
Echinacea?
Yes, echinaceas. Because they have that wet in the winter, they die. I don't know whether you've looked at the RHS trial of echinaceas at Twisley, have you, Nick?
I haven't yet. No. What's it revealing?
There's very little to see.
Well, I have to say, I often say this to people, I really like echinaceas, but I cannot think of a single garden in the UK where there's an established stand of echinacea. It just doesn't seem to happen.
Yeah.
They're lovely almost as an annual. And some of the crazy ones that appeared a few years ago, the orange flowered ones and the sort of green and whites and stuff. I mean, again, I'm afraid I've just treated them like annuals because they don't
that's
survive.
what you have to do. If you get your mind around the fact that they're probably not going to come back, and you don't mind spending the money for them, then that's fine. But that's the way to use them, I think.
Of course, for you, Nick, we were hearing this from Bunny and also from Tamara Bridge. As a designer, you have got to know the right plant for the right client. And, there are going to be people, you just need something that can take neglect, that will reliably, turn up and produce the goods year in, year out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a standard palette of plants. I mean, in the last few years, I've obviously dealt with a lot of gardens in central London. You'll recognise this, Alan, that like the bog standard things that you find everywhere. So there's Hydrangea Annabelle, absolutely everywhere. Pittosporum tabera, absolutely everywhere. Buxa sempervirens, well, it's being taken out by the box caterpillar. But it's the plastic grass, pleached carpinus. It's just all this stuff that's agapanthus, and there's maybe 2 or 3 other things. And you kind of think, gosh, London gardeners are really missing out. There's such especially the heat island of London, the range that could be grown there. Yet people just fall back on these, what I'm afraid I tend to call landscaper plants, which are the kind of just solid doers that you can kind of bung in and neglect. And of course, London is full of
a new television series for you.
Well, perhaps. But London's full of this. I don't know if you've come across
a series on London gardens where people actually grow plants that are almost completely non-hardy throughout the rest of the British Isles. I think would be very interesting, actually, because it would encourage people, as we're going into this period where the climate's changing and becoming warmer. It might encourage people to try a few of these unusual plants further afield than the great radiator that is central London.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the Physic Garden is testament to that. If you look what's, there's an avocado growing there that fruits. There's a grapefruit growing there, which fruits all year round. There's the largest olive tree in the UK. So but I think there's those two extremes. There's all that sort of fineness and delicacy of the Physic Garden, and then you go to the sort of wealthy houses nearby, and they've got all those bog standard plants. And once a week, a guy comes in. I don't know if you guys have come across this term, the mow, blow, and go gardener.
Yeah.
Which so often happens in central London.
When I drive to London, we drive down a road in just outside Hampstead. And I think there's an awful lot of foreign diplomats live in this road. And I mean, you can tell that they don't just, when one moves out, they pull the house down and build another one. It's that kind of thing.
Wow.
But you were talking about Hydrangea Annabelle. Well, Mow, Blow and Flow come in and look after this garden. And they do actually, they blow the leaves off the tarmac and they sweep and they keep Annabelle looking absolutely sweet. But that's about all there is. There's lots of white paving and white Annabelle, and that's about all there is. Yeah.
And it's, as you say, it's a waste of what's an amazing opportunity. There's that that lovely little Nemesia. I'm just trying to remember the Nemesia confetti. And if you grow it at East Ruston, Alan, I mean, in London, in central London, in a protected garden, it flowers year round. It never stops. There's one I put into a courtyard, which is now 6 years old. Sold to the rest of the country as an annual.
It does similar things, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. And so it's sort of taking advantage of that climate. And it's a shame that people don't do it more.
Do you find, Nick, that when people are hiring you to design their gardens, that they expect something different, or do you find you come up against, I want what I've seen my rich friend has, and they've got lots of Annabelle looking fabulous, and I want that? Or do they come to you expecting you to be able to experiment and do something a bit different?
I mean, I think I'm really blessed because there's a particular set of clients out there that have already sort of predetermined what they want and what they don't want. But I've been really lucky in the last 5 years that I've been able to sort of, I guess people have recruited me for a particular reason, or because they know my background is as much plantsman as it is designer. So they know what they're sort of signing up to, that it isn't going to be a mow, blow and go garden. It's going to be something that's a bit more dynamic, a bit more exciting. And no, I think I'm very, very lucky. I mean, one strange restriction I do hear again and again and again from clients, and I don't know if you've come across this, Alan, is that people don't want orange. Now, I absolutely love orange, and I'm not prepared to not use it. So they tell me I don't want orange. I promise under no circumstances will there be orange in the garden. I then put orange in the garden, but I call it peach or apricot, and then it's all fine.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I do remember, I remember extolling the virtues of some crocosmias to a lady who was visiting my garden, and she said, well, that's all very nice. And I said, well, what's wrong with them? She said, well, they're orange. As if I was supposed to agree with her and hate orange. Well, I know for a start that our host today, Thunder Fairy,
yes,
Thordis, loves orange. I'm glad to hear that you do, because I do. And it makes me think. It makes me think that perhaps we're ahead of the game, because in a funny sort of way, I remember back to the gardening fashions of yesteryear. Where's he gone?
Just showing off my burnt orange pillow.
I remember going back to the gardens of yesteryear, where everything had to be cream and pale pink before all colour was allowed. I mean, in the advent of putting dahlias in your garden rather than a vegetable garden or cutting patch, I mean, that was huge. And I think, from that, I think will become a love of orange. And, if you think of growing orange flowers with chocolate coloured foliage, absolutely fine. It just looks absolutely lovely. And don't put orange with white. Always put it with cream. So much smarter, darling.
And talking dahlias,
good tip.
My best dahlia is it brown sugar? Oh, it's it's amazing. Everybody needs to grow it, whether you like orange or not. It's kind of ready orange, I suppose, anyway, but it's wonderful.
Oh, there's such good value at this time of year.
Yeah.
I rather like the fact that all these people that hate orange are suddenly going to find themselves left behind.
Well, yes. Well, yes, indeed.
Now I start talking about dahlias, we can move on to FLOMO, I think. Actually, my FLOMO is specifically Nick Bailey related, because I was going through some of my photos the other day. And for anyone who doesn't know what FLOMO is, fear of missing out on a fabulous plant, though by episode 8, you're probably well on board with FLOMO. And I think all gardeners have it. But I was going through my photos and I spotted a plant from a picture visiting a garden in Cornwall. And it was a plant I had first seen in your show garden. And it was that wonderful aloe or aloe polyphylla.
Oh, polyphylla, yeah.
That spirals round. And I mean, I've probably got no hope of growing it, to be honest, in my tiny garden. I haven't really got anywhere I can put it. But I saw it and I thought, I remember seeing that plant in your garden on Main Avenue at the Chelsea Flower Show and just being blown away by it.
It's such a special plant, and I mean we were lucky enough to secure the 5 specimens in the country, the 5 big specimens, and so we used them right at the front of the garden. I was completely neurotic about them the whole time because they're worth hundreds of pounds each, but people haven't seen them. They're the most incredible thing. Viewed from above, they're this extraordinary piece of perfect mathematical geometry. The layout of the leaf, the spiral pattern that they follow. It's it's Fibonacci series, that sort of mathematical sequence of numbers that determines it, and it's just perfect.
I was just thinking, I don't know whether we've got that in the garden here, but I don't think we have.
You should.
It's quite a special thing.
Yeah, I don't think it would be hardy enough for us to grow outside yet. Yeah.
Maybe maybe all your succulents in the, I can't remember which the area of the garden's called, the sort of narrow area of the garden by the back of the cafe. We've got the succulents on the shelves.
Oh yes, outside the office. Yeah. I'm with you. That would be a good
I guess
place, actually.
Maybe if it was containerized. Yeah.
I think
that's
there with a young one if they're worth that much money. I think
that shelf of succulents takes up a whole page in my book, Revive Your Garden, because I thought it was so lovely.
Good.
And Jonathan took such a lovely picture of it. So
Jonathan who?
Jonathan, the Jonathan. I mean, he's a bit like Cheryl or Madonna or Kylie. You know, it's a bit like saying Fergus in horticulture. There is only one Fergus, right?
Give him a plug.
So Jonathan Buckley, the fabulous garden photographer. Yes, Jonathan Buckley.
So Nick, what is your FLOMO?
Okay, so this is going to take a bit of a sell because it's not. It doesn't look particularly beautiful at the moment. Now, if we were doing this recording at 8:30 tonight, you would be able to experience it a little more. But let me just grab hold of it. So this is a plant I fell in love with when I was working in South Africa, which having just done this 30 years thing, I can now remember exactly was in 1996. And this is the plant. Now, I appreciate this looks a little ratty at the moment. However, it's because I've got it with some others in my glass house and it's being held up. But what's special about it is this flower. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. So I don't know how closely you can see, but the flower buds curl up during the day and they look almost black on screen, but in fact they're sort of a deep burgundy red. Maybe this one looks a little bit better. And then you can see as well that the corolla tube, the white bit behind the flower, is absolutely enormous. And so there's 2 very specific reasons for this. This plant is called Zalosianskia capensis. So it comes from the Cape region of South Africa. It, as I say, the flowers are sort of dark on the back, but at night time they open. And they're specifically sort of co-evolved with a moth. So a moth is able to get its extraordinarily long tongue all the way down to the bottom of the corolla tube. And actually there are moths out there, believe it or not, that have tongues up to 4 times the length of their body. Can you imagine the practicality of that, Alan, walking around Chelsea? You have to use it as a, just roll it around, maybe a belt, a little sash. Anyway.
Devon headbands.
Sorry?
Devon headbands.
Yes, indeed. And so the thing that makes this plant truly, truly extraordinary is it has the most mind-blowing night scent. It's kind of Parma violet, if you remember those sweets from our youths. And there's no other plant that I know that carries this scent. I have it in my glass house, and just these few flowers are enough to fill the glass house in the evening. It's absolutely spectacular. Now, if you grow it better and a bit harder than I have done this year, you can end up with a much more sort of chunky, compact plant that's more this sort of size. And it's a lovely thing that you can have on an evening dining table outdoors. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful evening scent. Obviously, you won't get the specific moths arriving. And of course, the other thing I should mention as well is once the flowers open up, they're white on the inside, so very, very striking. And each petal is like the end of a little bone, so it's a little bobbled double end to the petal. So it's a really, really special thing. So Zelosianskia capensis, very, very lovely thing. This one's tender and it's an annual. If you want to try a Zelosianskia at home, there's a much hardier one called Zelosianskia ovata, which you can grow on a rock garden or similar. Its scent is nothing in comparison to this, but it has a very similar flower. It's very beautiful. But I would say next year, honestly, have a go at growing Zelosianskia capensis.
It's on my wish list.
Yeah, I thought it would be. So, Alan, what is your current FLOMO?
Well, my current FLOMO is, well, they're twofold really, because I've just heard about, it's new to me, it's just a geranium, a hardy geranium called Elworthy Eyecatcher. And you know how you get these sort of hardy geraniums, they self-seed around and they're great in sort of, if you've got the space and you want to cover some ground, they're great for sort of either using in a meadow planting or in a woodland planting where you get some shafts of sunshine coming through. And they're always usually sort of a slight pale knicker pink. Well, this one, this one has vibrant pink flowers. And I think you could almost say it's shriekingly chaparelli pink, which is a favorite phrase of mine. And I think the flowers are, they're this shrieking pink. They've got magenta venation on the flowers. That means veins. And they've got a lovely boss of stamens, which are purpley black and a black eye. And the great thing about them is this eye catcher, Elworthy eye catcher, is that it flowers from June until the first frosts. So if you've got space or something like that, I think it's absolutely lovely. I'm going to have some of that very, very soon. So I'm going to be using it. The other thing is a tree that's come to my attention, and it's something called Hagenia abyssinica. And I've just been reading, I pinched this idea from a great friend of mine, Helen Dillon, who gardens in Northern Ireland. And she said, this is my favorite tree. And she's got a new garden she's had for the last 4 years because she downsized and moved outside of Dublin itself. And she's got a 4-year-old tree and it just has such fantastic form. You need to look at it because it has these kind of great clusters of brown sort of catkini type things on it. It could even be fruit. But abyssinica, is it going to be hardy? I don't know.
Ooh, interesting. I think, did you see any bits of Dermot's BBC Two show? Because he featured Helen's new garden, which I was yet to see until that point.
Yeah, I did see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
very
good. Nice. Yeah. I mean, we all know that Helen, and she'll forgive me for saying it, but we all know that Helen is as mad as a box of frogs. But in all the right ways. In all the right ways.
Yeah, in the right way, the absolutely lovely way. But when it comes to plants, boy, does she know her stuff, and boy, is she generous. I did a talk in Dublin once, and she was in the audience. And she'd written about a form of Melianthus major, which has a purple cast to the stems. And I saw her in the audience, and doing my talk, and up comes Melianthus major as a slide. And when the slide came up, I mentioned the fact that there was a rather famous Irish lady journalist who says that she has a form with purple cast to the leaves. And she said to me the next day, because I was seeing her garden the next day, she said to me, "Damn, he's going to want my last plant." Well, I did. I got it.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
We're really running out of time, and we should talk more about you, Nick, while we've got you in your busy schedule. You talked about working on your new website and kind of your business. What are your current plans, and where do we go and find out more about you?
Oh, grand. Okay. Well, I mean, this year has obviously been very, very strange for all of us, but it's opened up a brilliant opportunity for me, which is, myself and other presenters on Garden as well are in this sort of somewhat ironic situation that from May through till July, we're barely in our own homes because we're constantly traveling around the country to garden shows or different locations for shoots. And so our gardens get extremely neglected or nothing happens at all. So actually it's been wonderful to have this period of time. And so I've actually spent the last few months kind of redesigning and developing my own garden. Now it's a London garden, so it's not huge, but it does come with those advantages we were talking about earlier. So in fact, before I was chatting to you today, I was outside with an angle grinder, cutting more bricks. And the garden featured on BBC Gardener's World about 2 months ago, and they're due to come back and film again. So that'll be going out later in the year. What's been really interesting, and I suspect it's something to do with lockdown, is the inquiries coming through for garden design, because I think people are so much more focused on their plots because they're stuck at home. And so I've tended to focus on the southeast for most of my work. But in actual fact, I'm doing a garden up in closer to you guys in Stalham at the moment. So up in Norfolk. In fact, Alan, I'm hoping Ian can be involved with some of the maintenance if you haven't taken up every day he has spare. But we will see. Yeah, and then various other projects. But I was really keen to sort of sort out my website because if I'm honest, it's been a bit of a mess for a while, and wanted to sort of offer up a few sort of different things that I do. So the books are going onto the website. So 365 Days of Colour in Your Garden, snappily titled, and Revive Your Garden, which is my second and third book. So now I can finally sell those via the website with dedications. I've got my sort of full garden design and build service properly promoted on there. So my company's called Nota Bene Horticulture. And so it's just an opportunity to show a bit of what we do. And so, of course, we offer a fairly standard kind of garden design and build service, but we're starting to do a few different things. So, for example, one thing we're going to be doing through this autumn and into next year is an online consultancy service. So people can come onto the website, book me in for a particular time slot, either as a gift for a friend or their own garden, or it could be two neighbours sharing it. And then they get half an hour of me exclusively in their garden, either advising on design, plant identification, pest and disease, whatever it may be. And so they get a bit of a slice of head gardener on their plots. And then I'm also launching, I think I'm sort of most excited about, is a series of webinars online. So ordinarily, by this point in the year, I probably would have spoken to 30 or 40 different horticultural groups around the country. Of course, that's not been possible because of lockdown. And so I thought, okay, what's another way I can make this work? And in fact, I did a webinar for Garden Masterclass, and in fact did a teaching session last year at Alan's place for Garden Masterclass as well. And it went down extremely well. And I kind of thought, okay, I can do this. You know, all I need is a Zoom meeting and some plants and me. And so yeah, that'll come out via the website. And as I say, I'm also launching a blog on there, which I've not done before. So there's 3 features up on there. Well, it'll be going live fairly shortly, but there's one feature on something I know drives gardeners completely insane. You probably get questions about it on the show, is why do plant names keep changing? So there's a blog on that. There's a blog on new approaches to bulbs. And then there's the blog, which is the what I've been doing for the last 30 years.
Wow. And with that, we've basically run out of time.
Oh, sorry.
So thank you so much to both of you for your time. I've had an absolute ball and so many more plants on my wish list.
Thank you. Great to talk to you both.
Happy gardening and goodbye.
Love your dog. So cute.
She a cockapoo?
Yeah. Very scruffy because she hasn't been to the groomers. I just cut her with scissors, so she looks a right shambles.
Oh no, I think that's cute. She's going a bit Bob Marley on the ears, actually.
Yeah, it's all gone, and yeah. I thought Alan was going to leap in then.
No, sorry, I wasn't.
What's your middle name, Alan?
You wait till you hear it.
Just you wait.
Is it Celine? Is it Margaret?
No, it's Margot.
I can see you as a Margot. I think you carry that off.